Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Nama Pranavarthaya Shuddha Jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So this Atma, which he defined as Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan, indicating that size cannot be the definition. You cannot say that it doesn't have a size. It is something which size is something which you know in the Jagat. Atma has no direct relation to size. The karya of Maya with Atma is the whole Jagat. That has all these characteristics. Size, speed, time, all the other characteristics that our senses perceive. Colors, sounds, all of them. Atma itself belongs to another order of reality which is unchanging. Everything else changes. Understand the difference between an adhishthanam which undergoes change to become something else and an adhishthanam which does not undergo any change and yet becomes or appears to become something else, or many things, are these two examples that we have. Any example that we use to show that there is an adhishthanam for everything, which is an atma for everything, without which these products don't exist, we have been using either examples of things like gold and golden ornaments, clay and all clay products, not just the pot, and saying that, look, these ornaments are created from gold by the gold undergoing a change in form, not in the basic character. It's still the same gold, same as shiny, as malleable, has the same atomic properties, but undergoes some change because gold and golden ornaments, clay and clay products all belong to the same order of reality. So you have to understand this. They belong to the same order of reality. Therefore, gold becomes a chain by changing form. That's all. Gold remains gold, but some change takes place. Whereas in the other example that we often use in the Shastra, a rope might become a snake, might become a streak of water, might become a crack on the floor, or something like that. But only as though becomes. While a gold becomes a chain, because the change is brought about in the gold by its nimitta karana, the rope without undergoing any change at all could become anything else. The difference is the rope and all its so-called products belong to two different orders of reality. Gold and golden ornaments or clay and clay products belong to the same order of reality. Now, when you compare this and then say that which undergoes no change and yet appears to produce products, karya, have to belong to two different orders of reality. So Atma, without undergoing any change in anything, not in shape, not in the movement, not in any form, any characteristic you can think of. Change means that which we recognize in this mithya jagata powers, in different degrees, something happens. Something which is hot we measured by measuring the temperature and becomes cold as it cools, and the same temperature measure gives you the same thing with size. Something we measure by saying so much, so small or so big. All of which is relative. But Atma is not subject to any of these because there are no characteristics. You cannot say the default state of the Atma is 10 centimeters. There's nothing like that. The default temperature of Atma is 37.4 degrees. That is the temperature of your body. That's not the temperature of Atma. And yet we say, my body is in this temperature, therefore I am at 37.4 degrees. If I understand I correctly, I cannot impute any such thing to the Atma. Size doesn't come into picture, place doesn't come into picture, time doesn't come into picture, nothing comes into the picture. Therefore, when you say Anuraniyan Mahatomya, therefore he uses all these contrasts to try and make the brain think beyond its capacity. When somebody's heart stops, it just struck me. What does the doctor do? He applies shock, correct? To prime the heart to restart. It doesn't start, what does it tell the assistant? Once more. Increase the voltage a little bit. Again and again he gives a shock. Shastra does the same to us. A mind which is so categorically contained, which tries to put everything in a slot. This is small, this is big, this is here, this is there. Our mind tries to put everything in the slot, which you cannot do with what you're trying to understand. Atma, and more importantly, I. Therefore, this Shastra, through the words of Yamadharma Raja, gives us a shock. Anuraniyan Mahato Mahiyan. What are you talking about? How can it be smaller than the smallest and bigger than the biggest at the same time? And he tries to explain that which is not subject to any size, it is not material, it is not an object. Yah pashyati. He who sees this. Kaha pashyati? Akratuhu, akamaha. One who has vairagya, born of viveka, one who is already an adhikari, saha pashyati. Right? One who is drishtadrishta bahya vishaya is able to be unaffected by any phala because of vairagya. Kim pashyati? Kashikara beautifully says that Atma which is unchanging, karma nimitta buddhi kshaya rahitam pashyati. That which is unchanging, that which is anoraniyan mahato mahiyan, that pashyati, that is one way of looking, one level of looking at it. Tam atmanam pashyati. Not only that, that is not enough. Oh, there is one Atma-like thing there somewhere. You can't say it is there somewhere. That is what Yamadharma Raja, quoting the words of the Shastra, has said, you cannot place it in a location. It is Desha Anavichinnaha. You can't place it anywhere. Because the moment you place it somewhere, that indicates that it is not elsewhere. I am in Coimbatore automatically implies I am not in Chennai or in New York. You can't say that for Atma. So you can't place it in a place anywhere. You can't say it is small. Because the moment you say it is small, it means it is not big. You can't say it is today, implying it is not tomorrow or it was not yesterday. So it is Desha Kala Vastu Anavachinna. That Atma. That Atmanam Pashyati. As what? Not just something which is Desha Kala Vastu Anavachinna, but Pashyati, Sakshat Pashyati. Clearly, directly understands that Atma Aham. That is the Jnani. And only a person who fulfills certain basic requirements to understand this, who is an adhikari, akratuhu, therefore, only he sees. And when he sees, ahamasmi iti pashyati, sakshat pashyati, all things that had been troubling him drop off. Represented by Vigata Shokaha. Nothing unwanted is there. In fact, nothing is there, neither wanting nor unwanted. There is no want. Because what you then understand, if it is Deshakala Vastu Anavachinnaha, it is Anantam. I am Anantam. Or better still, I is Anantam. Cannot be contained in any kind of limit. But I do see all these limits. I do sense all these limits. I feel I'm limited. Because my orientation does not easily change. That I am this body-mind sense complex does not easily go away. And therefore, all the limitations that I sense in all of this, I attribute to I. So when somebody asks, have you understood? Yes. At an empirical level, I have understood. When I say I have understood, I still have subject-object orientation. I have understood. I have understood Atma. There is subject, there is object. That is why you can never make a statement. No jnani will ever make. You went and ask Swamiji, when did you understand? He might smile and leave it at that. How can you say that? The moment you make a statement like I have understood, you are clearly creating subject-object division. Who has understood? There is no I left. I, which I usually use to indicate ahankara. But Swamiji, the person who is understood still is there, the body is there, the ahankara is there. Yes, it is there. I love Swamiji's expression for this. It's an enlightened ahankara. And ahankara, which continues to be there for vyavaharika purposes, which continues to be there to exhaust the balance of your prarabdha. It looks like I understand Swamiji. But the moment I turn my back in the class, I am drowning in samsara. My wife turns around and says, did you bring the salt I asked you to buy? All your understanding is gone, dissolved like salt. Normal. How can I do that, understand that, and still go and buy the salt? There is only one solution. This process you repeat over and over again, like the doctor using repeated shocks. So Shastra uses that. After having said Anoraniyan, Mahato Mahiyan, Shastra doesn't stop there. And Bhashyakara very beautifully connects it. He says, this is not something which is easy to understand. For a person who is not yet fully prepared, which means he is not akratu akamaha yet, he is not been able to gain that vairagya born of viveka, or somewhere there's a lacuna. There is a absolute clarity of the Purushartha Nishchaya is not there. Of moksha requirement as my only requirement is not there. It remains one of many things that I want. I want moksha, but I also want my promotion in the office. Yeah. Sometimes the promotion takes priority. Moksha goes down. There was a young child, about 6 years old at that time. Very interesting child. When somebody said something which she didn't like, she would say, you've dropped in my priority list. Like that, other priorities take over at various points of time. Mumukshutvam goes below, then there is problem. Even when mumukshutvam is on top, I have vairagyam, but I have vignas. I have to get rid of all the obstacles in the way. My own papa karma of the past become my vignas. So I have to do what I have to do to get rid of those vignas. Therefore, it is not easy to gain. You saw anyata durvigneyaha. Anyata meaning other than the one who is akratuhu, who is able to see everything else is other than I. For that person who is not well prepared, durvigneyaha. With a lot of struggle, I might still gain paroksha jnana. Swamiji, I think I've understood Atma. I can define it. It is Anoraniya, Mahato, Mahiyan. It is Ajaha, Nitya, Shashvataha. Words. We have a tendency, generally, many times to use words without really understanding what we're using it for and why, where we're using it, because I've heard it somewhere. I see our news anchors doing it very often, okay? They will say something. I don't get the feeling that they understood what they're saying. I see newspaper reports like that. Because you heard the words, we use the words. But that understanding is not the understanding that Shastra is trying to make us gain. Therefore, Anyata Durvignyayam. For whom? For Kami Bihi, Prakrita Purushaihi. For whom there are many, many desires. Get me a promotion in the office, win the next marathon, travel the world, have a collection of wonderful seaweed or something. You know, people collect seaweed also. Anything. Amongst all that, this is one. Mumukshutvam is one. Therefore, Kami Bihi. For such people, it is difficult. It is this effort that we make slowly to cut it down. Swamiji has a wonderful example for this. And some of you might have heard this. He said, when he was sitting in the airport once, before these electronic boards came in, or even those electronic boards was a matter, but the one he described was very interesting. You know, we used to have the mechanical systems. So we will have flight number, destination, time, on time or delayed or whatever. And these mechanical things go to brrr and change to the next one. I don't know how many of you have seen the airport. So you go to, you're going to Ahmedabad. That's what Swamiji's example is. And he's saying on the board, initially that it is no, Ahmedabad flight is also not there at all. Then slowly it appears at the bottom. Brrr, there's a flight is appearing at the bottom, but there are about 10 different ones above that. And then slowly one flight goes, one karma goes. My mumukshutvam comes up. Slowly it goes up, 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 till it becomes the priority karma, not even a karma. And then Ahmedabad comes on top. Then he says somebody will come. Ahmedabad, 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 Ahmedabad. Those trying to Ahmedabad by SQ so and so, not SQ, whatever it is. 6E so and so. Please come with me. It takes you ahead of everybody else. That that mukshutvam becomes, if not the only goal, at least top priority goal. If that is not there, they are prakrita purushaihi. People who are in the vasha prakriti, which automatically means a lot of different desires. For them, it is durvigneyam. Beautiful expression. Therefore, Shastra now, for such people, give this second shock. Noraniya mahato mahiyan. Here is one more. Asino duram brajati.
आसीनो दूरं व्रजति
Shayano yati sarvatah.
शयानो याति
याति
सर्वतः
सर्वतः
Asino duram brajati. Sitting in one place goes far. Asina hai to sit. As dhatu, meaning to sit. It is stationary in one place and still goes everywhere. What an expression. How is that possible? Already I have had this one shock saying, Anoraniya Mahato Mahiyan, you give me one more. Asino Duram Brajati. Our mind really looks at the entire Jagat, which is all we know, and we try and put everything in very clear classification categories. And to that mind, something which is stationary means it is stationary. You cannot say it goes far. He doesn't stop there. Shayano yati sarvatah. Yati is goes, travels. Goes everywhere while sleeping. While sleeping, what goes everywhere? Nothing goes everywhere. And yet he says, while sleeping, this Atma that you're trying to understand goes everywhere. Now, this paradox number 2 and 3, if you want, has also to be understood correctly. Shastra uses it in many of these Upanishads, you see this or similar expressions. I remembered Ishavasya Upanishad has some similar statement right in the beginning of the Upanishad. Anejadekam manaso javiyo nainadeva apnuvan purvamarshata tadhavatonyānantyeti tishtat tasmin napomo matarishva dadati. Similar expressions. Anejadekam manasaha javiyo. Mind is the one we know, it goes very fast. We travel very fast. You can sit here and the mind has gone to what's happening in Israel. Mind doesn't go anywhere, fortunately. Thoughts go. And instantly. And I'm still sitting here, the mind is still here, but thoughts go. He says, when thoughts go, faster than the thoughts, that which goes. We don't know anything that goes faster than the mind. Not just Israel. I can go to Brahmaloka because I've studied something about Brahmaloka and I have imagined the Brahmaloka. My thoughts have already gone there. It appears as if I have gone there. Fortunately, that is one area where we still say my thoughts went there. But much faster than that is the Atma. To us physically, light is the fastest traveler. There is nothing that, according to mathematical calculations, that can be faster than light. Even that is being challenged now by science. But mind is definitely faster than that. A mind to reach from a distant star might take several light years. Mind, instant. It is like, some of these magicians used to be there. I'm sure, heard of this. People like P.C. Sorkar. They are doing a show in Mumbai, Bombay that time, and suddenly appear in Calcutta. Maya. Only he knows. He's the Mayan. He knows how it's done. Like that. Instantly it's gone there. How can something be faster than that? Can you say, for example, I'm here in this particular place. Therefore, my mind is here, my thoughts are here. Suddenly my thought goes to Ukraine. I don't know why these war areas come to mind. They are in the news, I guess. Very far away. But space is already there. An indivisible space is already there. It is here as well as there. So you can't be faster than space, can you? However fast the mind might go, it can't be faster than space. The space is already there. Everything is in space. If we take the same equivalence, only take it as an example. Everything is in Atma. Everything is born of Atma. Space is born of Atma. Therefore, when he says, Desha anavachinna, not contained by space. Space itself is born of Atma. Therefore, Atma is, in a sense, everywhere. But there also you have to understand very clearly. The moment I say it's everywhere, our mind goes saying in space. No, space is the Atma. Because space is born of Atma. So when he says asino duram rajati, the only way we can understand is this Atma is already there. That's why he said, no. In the same Ishavasya Upanishad mantra, Taddhavatonyanyanti titishtantasminnapo matarishva dadati. Because this is Samaveda. So it's got to have all those. Sitting where it is sitting, it goes faster than anybody running. Sitting where it is sitting, it's faster than anybody running. The fastest man in short distance sprint, Usain Bolt. He bolts from the starting thing to the finish line in about 9 seconds, I think. But it is already there. sitting in the starting point is already there in the end point. One level of understanding, using space as an example. But more than that, that which is not contained by any space, any desha, which has been defined here by Shastra, is I. In the previous verse, he said, Sakshat Pashyati, I am Ahamasmi. That will come in time. Therefore, many shocks are required. And Shastra, fortunately, has a stock of these shocking statements, high voltage statements. Asino dhuram brajati. Shayano yati sarvataha. Dhuram brajati. What is dhuram? It's such a relative term. Vrajati is also a relative term. It's all within this jagat. What is dhuram? Relative to New York, Chennai is not dhuram. It is nearby. But relative to the moon, from where I am, or related to Chennai, moon is dhuram. Where Chennai was dhuram relative to, say, New York. Where New York was dhuram relative to Chennai, related to the moon, New York is not dhuram. It's all relative. That itself is an issue. Rajati is also an issue. How can you travel? The other day we discussed that each one of us is traveling at over 700 miles per hour. I'm saying 700 because we are not in the equator. In the equator, we're traveling at over 1,000 miles per hour. And yet we're not traveling. Because related to the earth, we are not traveling. Earth and I are traveling the same place, same time, same way. There is no relative movement. Therefore, I don't feel it. The whole atmosphere also travels with the earth. I can imagine the kind of calculations space scientists have to do to place something in geosynchronous orbit. You know what a geosynchronous orbit is? You place a satellite in an orbit where in relation to the earth, it remains the same place, in the same orientation. To calculate that, there is so much distance you have to have it. That orbit should be in keeping with the movement of the earth. In fact, India has placed one such satellite around Mars also, Mangalyaan, and placed it in geostationary orbit around Mars. But if it were not geostationary, I should be able to see movement. I can see movement of stars or the moon, but nothing like the speed of it which I should feel, because in actual term, I'm traveling at 700, 800 miles per hour. It doesn't look like that when you look at the moon because the distance. If an helicopter were to be hovering around 100, 200 feet above the earth, hovering, not moving, I should be able to feel that movement, the speed. It's a relative. But Atma, neither in absolute terms nor in relative terms is there any movement. It is sarvataha. Because anantam. It's the same Atma. Wherever I am, it's the same Atma. Wherever my mind is, it's the same Atma. Wherever my thoughts are, it's the same Atma. Therefore, Desha Anavachinna. Same idea is explained in the next shocking statement he makes. Shayano yati sarvata. While asleep, is everywhere. Sarvata. What is sarvata? Again, we have to understand this word. To us, sarvata means everywhere. The where is there. Space. In fact, a very interesting question you can look at yourself. Scientists say space is expanding. And is expanding and accelerating. Is expanding faster every day. What is it in which space is in which expanding? If you understand space as the definition of space, and if space is expanding, in what is it expanding? I haven't found an answer. Shastra says space is also in Atma. Space cannot exist independently of Atma. Therefore, when he asks questions like expanding space, how do we understand expanding space? The Jnani, the expanding space is in me, the I. You're only 5 feet 8 inches, weighing some 70 kilos. How can you say space is so large? Space has no independent existence. Therefore, you can make statements like this. Sleeping, it is everywhere. Shayano yati sarvatah. Like in the previous mantra, having given all the shock in the first line, he said, Tamakratu pashyati vita shokah dhata prasadan mahimanamatmana. That Atma you should recognize as Atmanaha Mahimanam. When I read these things of Shankaracharya, I feel, my God, what a buddhi. At less than 32 years, he says, Atmana Mahimana is karma nimitta vriddhi kshaya rahitam. Karma nimitta vriddhi kshaya rahita. He is the Mahima of Atma. Unchanging. Here also he says, this kind of thing, how can anybody understand? Who can understand? Who can understand this kind of statement? Asino duram brajati shayano yati sarvatah. Acharya started this verse by saying, Durbhigyeha. For who? Anyatha. Here he says, Katstam madamadam devam madanyo jnatum arhati. Who has the capacity to understand this? Other than I. Mat anyaha. Jnatum arhati. Who has capacity to know. This madamadam, mada is harsha, joy. Mada amadam. Madam amadam. This which is everything. Madam also, amadam also. Harsha, aharsha. Which is joy and sorrow. How can something be at the same time joy and sorrow? Either I am happy now or I am unhappy. How can I be both happy? That is the limited mind that we have here. But that which is the very adhisthana for joy as well as sorrow. That which, without which neither joy nor sorrow can exist. That is the only thing you can understand as Madamadam. And who can understand this? Only a Deva, a self-effulgent being who doesn't require an Atma for its existence. Our famous example, my Angavastram is based on a fabric. It's been cut from a fabric. Therefore, fabric is the Atma for my Angavastram. That fabric is made of yarn. So yarn is the Atma for my fabric. That yarn is made of fibers, which is then the Atma for the yarn. And keep going. Where will you end? Atma is the very adhishthanam for everything. I am the adhishthanam for everything. It is as though I am sarvasya karanam. Therefore, my prayer to Ishvara, please help me understand how you and I are not different. Please help me understand ananyatvam. Asino duram vrajati shayano yati sarvatah. Kastam madamadam devam madanyo jnatum arhasi. This self-effulgent Atma, who is Mada and Amada at the same time, who is near and far at the same time, who is hot and cold at the same time, which my mind cannot think of anything that I know which satisfies these conditions. Which is non-dual and dual at the same time, which is inside and outside at the same time. Everything is relative. Everything belongs to Jagat. In fact, the another verse in Bashyam Upanishad says, Tadejati tannejati tad dure tad bantiki tadantasya sarvasya tadu sarvasyasya bhahyatah. That which is inside everything and outside everything. Inside, outside are all relative. Near and far like that relative, small and big are relative. Tad ejati, tad na ejati. That moves, that doesn't move. Tad dure, tad bantike. That which is far and that which is near. Simultaneously, Yogapath. That it's inside, that is also outside. I like that example of the pot. Is pot in the space or space in the pot? Space is not only in the pot, we have a pot space, but it's also that the pot is in space. And there is space in the walls of the pot as well. Atma, space is a good laukika drishtanta for us to understand. That which is without which nothing has existence. Therefore, space is, that is what I'm search for. Computer is, mountain is, star is, my thought is. The is what I'm trying to search and understand. Existence, Chaitanya. We understand not consciousness as we know consciousness, but the very existence, that which lends existence to everything else. Therefore, you say star is, mountain is, water is. That which from all things borrow their existence. That Chaitanyam, Chinmayam, Chaitanya Swarupam, also called Satyam, also called Anantam. From which everything is borrowed. Space borrows its existence from that. Time borrows its existence from that. Therefore, time is, space is. Any vastu you can think of, tangible, intangible, is. Atma is isness. And Atma is the only one which can satisfy the definition so far given. Asino duram brajati, shayano yati sarvataha, anoraniyan mahato mahiyan. It is the only thing that can satisfy these definitions of anything at all. How can anybody understand this Mada Madam, the same time Mada and Amadam, this which is self-effulgent, Devam, other than I, Madanyaha, Kaha, Tam, Jnatum Arhati, who has the capacity to understand this? Meaning nobody can have the capacity to understand this unless he or she gains all the qualifications that have been prescribed. Akratuhu. As long as this mind is clouded by any kind of raga, dvesha, any kind of pressures that samsara builds in us, then this is durbhigya. Shankaracharya is very clear. Eventually, one has to drop everything and focus ekagrita on this, gaining this knowledge, for which some form of Shastra prescribes sannyasa. I have no doubt all of you will sooner or later gain that focus. Single pointed focus, ekagrita. Then this becomes workable. Then it becomes possible to gain this knowledge of that, knowing which everything is as though known. We will continue in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.